All right, welcome everyone. Episode 5 of Just a Game with BBZ and myself, Brick Poker. Spicy episode we're going to have today, as there's been a lot of drama within the poker world. I didn't think we would ever talk about this sort of thing, but I believe people would actually love to hear what you would think personally, Jordan, about what's going on. So there's two main things we'll talk about. The first one, obviously there was a very controversial hand that happened in the main event. So if you don't know the hand, I'll basically give a quick summary. So there's about 13 left, and it's Kristen Bicknell versus, I forgot his last name, but his first name is Joe. And he opens under the gun. He's got around 80 big blinds. Kristen has 40. She's in the big blind calls. Joe has ace king with the ace of spades, king of clubs. Kristen calls with the king of spades and the queen of diamonds. And the flop comes ace of hearts, king of hearts, jack of spades. And Kristen checks. Joe bets about 2/3 pot on the flop. Kristen check calls. The turn brings in a flush draw, the 5 of spades, and Kristen checks. Joe then bets about, he bets 11 million into 14 million, so a little over 2/3. And she shoves. And then he ends up calling with 2 pair, and she busts out of the tournament in 13th place. Jordan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I glanced at the stacks quickly, and I did look at the hand so that I got like a little bit of a visual. So this is like sort of an ICM loaded spot in the sense that there's pretty meaningful pay jumps. I think she just cleared one, and there are there's pretty serious implications financially. So for people that are wondering like what ICM implications might mean, they basically mean like if you win all of the chips in the tournament, you don't get all the money from the tournament, right? So that means that the chips that you have surviving is more valuable than like just outright winning, right? So, well, let me rephrase that. Your chips are more valuable than your opponent's chips, right? So like you basically get paid to survive. You need a premium to stack off. So she's experiencing some of this basically like survivor pressure, okay? And so the pre-flop play is probably like the only answer. Her 3-bet strategy there is probably meant to be like much more polarized and probably doesn't include much king queen off. It's probably like mostly suited dense. Probably has like a lot of suited king highs, suited ace highs, particularly around like wheels. So like king, ace 5 suited, ace 4 suited, ace 3 suited, ace 2 suited, and like suited king highs. Maybe like some offsuit ace x hands as well. So that's gonna be how she bluffs. So king queen's really not a part of that. It doesn't really have much of a role to play, I don't think. So I assume her pre-flop call is like the only answer. So there's like no debate at all. Once she gets to the flop, she can't fold. So I think that the flop is the only answer, is to check call. I don't think that you want to play like a very heavy 2-bet strategy here. Given the ICM pressure, she's probably less capped than it looks. Like she obviously doesn't have pocket aces or pocket kings on a board like this. But she might be fighting a hand like ace king or something, like more often than you might expect. And that's probably like not stupid. And she might have like queens and jacks and things like that and tens in the flatting range, like more often than some people might expect. For pretty much the same reasons, like those hands just, like given the ICM pressure, I think that those hands make more reasonable calls than people might understand or appreciate. So, she's got a strong, and then she's got more folds too. So she's got like her range is closer to the opening range than I think a lot of people expect it to be, if she's playing reasonably well. I expect she is. I think that she's going to have more pre-flop folds, more pre-flop traps, which translates to a stronger pre-flop kind of starting range. That being said, I still wouldn't be playing like a heavy check raise strategy on the flop. So I'm going to be like very heavily check calling in her shoes, and like that pretty much leads to the conclusion that her flop line is also trapped. Like she can't really do anything else. Like she's kind of stuck into pre-flop call, pure, flop call, pure, and then she gets to the turn. And so can you just repeat the board for everybody else as well?
Yeah, sure. So the flop comes ace, king, jack with 2 hearts and a spade. Mm-hmm. So she, like the relevant card that she would have here is, actually not that relevant. The king of spades she had in her hand. So yeah, no heart though. She has a
So
diamond.
it's ace king jack 5, right?
Yes, the 5 brings in the flush draw with a spade.
Okay. So her opponent covers her, and the 5 is going to be a blank for both players. Like, she's not going to obviously be check calling any 5x combos on the flop, aside from like, the ability to run into suited 2-pair. And the opener is not going to be opening 5x combos pre-flop, even if he's the chip leader, like that's still not going to reach down into like 5x combos. If the opponent does turn 5x, it'll be a big part of the double barreling range, presumably, for in position. And that's sort of a problem if she's got like 5x that with like a backdoor flush draw that she wants to jam into a turn double barrel. So if she has like 5x with a flush draw, I don't exactly know what the suits are because I don't see it. I'm not looking at the hand.
Yeah,
but
2 hearts and 1 spade, and the turn brings in a spade.
And the turns of 5 of spades then, right?
Yeah, 5 of spades. So I would think that.
Yeah, so she's got like 5x of hearts. Like if she's got 5x of hearts,
exactly.
Like the problem with jamming it is it probably blocks like some of the double barrels in the opener. Like it's not gonna be a lot of them, but it's probably not none of them. So like that might have issues. I'm not really sure. I don't think she wants to play too many turn raises, but at this like I would assume that she mostly wants to get basically like kind of trapped into call fold again. I don't think she really wants to play like an aggressive 2-bet strategy. If she does play an aggressive 2-bet strategy, it's probably built around like ace queen and ace 10 and bluffs, and like maybe some like 2-pair or something. Ace king jack 5, right?
Yep.
So I would say like ace queen and ace 10, yeah. Like ace jack 2, but I think ace queen's like probably a big part. If she builds a 2-bet, it's probably going to be heavily built around ace queen, and yeah, presumably like ace jack or ace king if she can have them. Pocket jacks is again in the flatting range for her, in my opinion. I think queen 10 probably plays to call. I think jacks might play to raise. As far as bluffs, it's probably a bunch of flush draws that have combo draws. So if she's got like 4 3 of spades or 4 3 of hearts, again I don't know which suit was the front door flush draw. I think it was hearts, right? So if she's got 4 3 of hearts, she might play that to jam. She's got 4 2 of hearts, she might play that to jam. But she's not going to be playing a big strategy to jam. I don't know if you want to play like the queen X or the 10x to jam, because that's going to be a big part of how the opponent double barrel bluffs. So like the opponent's going to be double barreling like queen 9s and 10 9s, and if they're the chip leader, depending on how much the chip leader, the opener covers the other players at the table, you might see more suited queen X hands and more suited 10x hands in the opening range. I might even see something like really spicy, like offsuit queen X, like offsuit queen 9, which would be really fucking wide. But like if he covers everybody, it's possible. So having those ones in the turn shoving range, they might show up, but they're not going to be there at like some really heavy weight, I don't think. I think that the 4x and the 3x ones are like super safe. They're still going to be played pre-flop, even for a tighter pre-flop flat. You'd still be flatting like 4 3 of hearts in the big blind. You can't do anything other than check call the flop because we're not playing raises. We get to the turn to 5, pick up a combo draw. We have no showdown value. Anything that the opponent folds is good for us because we have fucking 4 high. So we check jam. Like you could build a strategy around that. Do I do it? Probably not. I'm probably still playing call fold. Why am I doing that? Because I'm still relatively capped. Like I still have like a much more capped range than my opponent. They might be over bluffing this spot like really heavily, trying to apply a lot of pressure to my range, assuming that like different parts check raise out potentially on the flop or turn. So I might catch a lot of triple barrels with my traps, based on the premise that I'm raising strong hands on the turn, which is presumably what she thinks that she's doing, considering she bluffed with king queen. So I'm not really a fan. The other part of the problem with the play is when you look at like hands like ace king jack. On a board, sorry, if you look at a board like ace king jack, all of the hand, like not all, but and I'd have to look again at the flop bet sizing. But
he bet 2/3.
He bet 2/3 on the flop.
Yeah,
the flop. Are you sure?
100%. Yeah, he bet like 4-ish mil into 6. So
okay, so if he bets 2/3 on the flop, then that means she can fold jack X on the flop, and she can fold king X on the flop.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that she can fold jack X and king X on the flop means she doesn't have to fold those on the turn. So, like, given it's like a sort of ICM loaded spot, and your opponent bets 2/3, you're definitely going to fold jack 9. Like that's not debatable. Jack 9's out. Is king 7 out? It's probably a mix, but like it might be out. So, especially since like it's the like there's pretty significant page jumps. There's lots of ICM. People suck. Like it's not that big of a deal to fold king 7. If she's doing that, then her whole range on the turn becomes ace X and king X Broadway and jack X Broadway. So if she jams king queen, she's like there's really no difference between like king queen and like there's a difference because she blocks ace king and she blocks Yeah, she just blocks ace king. There's like sort of a difference between jamming. Yeah, it's probably better. Like king queen's probably better than like queen jack. Okay. I mean, like, it's not stupid. Like, it's not fucking stupid. The problem is she's going to get trapped into the idea that, like, she should probably just play call fold. And this is probably not how bluffing is done here. But it's also not really, really, really stupid, I don't think. But yeah, those are like that's sort of how I think about it. I mean, that's sort of like a bunch of bullshit. But the cliffs are, I don't think her play is horrendous. I don't think I would play any raises. I'd probably continue to play call fold. I get what she did. She blocks ace king. She blocks pocket kings. She blocks queen 10. So she jammed. But like she probably doesn't jam queen 10. And she probably shouldn't jam jacks. She probably doesn't have aces or kings. She could jam jacks. I think that's more defensible. She can't have anything else to jam. Like she shouldn't jam king jack. That's way too weak. So she has like ace king maybe, ace jack for sure, and pocket jacks for value. Not a lot of combos. Probably better off jamming the combo draws around the 5, like the 4 3s that I mentioned. You probably don't need too many bluffs. Call it a day. So bad play, in my opinion. But again, like, is there a line of reasoning that gets you to the answer that she had as an output? Like, sure. But I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah. Okay. So you're kind of finding a way to defend her a little bit. Like it's not outrageous. Like she turned some absolute.
I mean, it's probably a punt. Like if you look it up, the EV is probably
like,
bad. Like
I'm sure,
I'm just saying I can empathize with the thought process that gets you there.
Right,
Like she's probably thinking like, okay, he's over bluffing. Like he's the chip leader. He's running everybody over. Like like if you play this narrative out, like he's the chip leader. He covers everyone. He's opening a wide range. He's double barreling. He's like hammering this board. So I jammed as like a semi bluff. Like I block everything. I block ace king. I block ace queen. I block queen 10. I block pocket kings. Like, okay, like I get why you did it, but like you should probably just fucking call.
Yeah, I mean, even then, right? If you're in the perspective of Joe's seat, you know that her call range is actually insanely tight. Like you mentioned, right? You have all these strong hands like ace king jacks. Those are all in her flatting range. So yeah, even then, it's hard to kind of run her over a little bit after she calls on the flop too. Because I mean, if you think about her, on the flop, he bets 2/3. Like you're folding a lot.
Yeah, she is. Like she should be folding a lot, and yeah, so she's got a pretty clean range already. So like this is sort of like really this should be like really strong polarized range. Like he shouldn't be double barreling. Like even ace queen is probably too thin. Which like starts to be like, okay, so he has to fold, and you beat the bluffs with king queen. So he has to fold like value bets, but if he's not value betting ace queen, like you start to have some serious problems. So, you know, to the size that he chose, he could definitely value bet ace queen. I don't think it's like a mistake or anything, but like you could get into a world where like if you think her range is really that strong, and then it's ICM loaded, ace queen's just pure turn check. And then once you reach that conclusion, the problem is his barreling range is 2 pair plus. And then once his barreling range is 2 pair plus, now you need him to fold 2 pair to justify bluffing with king queen because you beat bluffs. So that's probably not going to happen. So like you start to get into like just total incineration mode, which like there's that. Like I said, I would have played call fold. I understand why she did what she did, I think, but I don't like it. So
yeah, okay. All right, well, then we can move on to the other hot topic. You know, pretty dramatic series, eh? I don't remember thinking about...
I mean, like this second topic is just insane, though. So, like, the first one is, like, someone played a hand in a way that's, like, whatever. Like, that's... Like, we're talking about it because it's, like, an interesting hand that, like, people have talked about. And it's, like, you know, people are interested in this hand and, like, I have a perspective on it. Sure. But, like, there's interesting hands in every WSOP Main Event. It's a fucking tournament. Like, if you comb through the tournament, you'll find, like, super crazy interesting hands. And, like, yeah, this one was high stakes and, like, everything. But there's always interesting, like, 1 or 2 interesting hands in the WSOP Main Event.
Sure.
But this second one is nuts.
Yeah, so we'll get right into that. So yeah, basically, if you're not familiar, I'm sure you are if you're listening to this podcast, but basically one of the finalists at the FT was getting some assistance from the sidelines where Dominic Nitch, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Might have butchered it.
I mean,
Dom. Anyways, Dom from DTO, owner of that, was running pre-flop. I think it was just pre-flop. I'm not sure. It might have been post-flop, but they were running sims on the sidelines in between hands, giving out information. I believe they were using HRC.
Munker.
Was it Munker?
Looked like
Okay.
Munker.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the picture. I mean, like, you know, I'm not doing research on what kind of
Yeah.
thing they're using. I just showed up here, but I think that the from
I think it was
having
Munker
used these
too.
programs,
Yeah.
it looked like Munker.
Okay, so yeah, we're going Monk. Yeah, he was using Munker solver, and yeah, they were just solving in between hands. He was going to the rail and chatting with them to get feedback. So yeah, why don't you give your thoughts?
So, first of all, I want to kind of preface this. Like, I actually like sort of I get along reasonably well with Dom. So like we're not friends or anything, but we've spoken candidly, and like I respect the guy. You know, he's built something DTO, and it's hard to build stuff. And what he's built has lasted for a while. Like, so it's hard to build stuff that people use for like a long period of time. He's had a lot of success as a player. So like I have a lot of respect for him as a human, and like as in terms of the things he's done now. He has an approach with certain people that makes him vulnerable because he attacks a lot of people. You know, like that's just the way he is. So like it's part of his marketing strategy. Well, however you think about it, he does put out a lot of venom to other people. None of it's ever come my way. Like I said, lots of respect for the guy, and I don't want to just tear somebody down for the sake of it. That being said, I would not have done what he did. And I condemn what he did pretty badly. Like the guy itself, like no. But the activity that he did, I would not have done the same thing in his position. First of all, I just think it's really fucking stupid with so much money at stake. Like, if you're the guy playing for heads up money, unless you have the tournament director like of WSOP sign something saying that this is a totally sanctioned thing, which you'll never do, unless you have somebody do that. I would never risk any sort of accusations around cheating with the sort of money that's at stake. It's just not worth it. Like, whatever edge you get isn't worth the risk that like if I was playing for millions of dollars heads up, right? I would be very concerned about doing something like this and then having like WSOP be like, you cheated, you're forfeiting. We're doing everything we can to fuck you. So because it looks terrible for WSOP. Like, it's just like, you know, we're all talking about this thing that WSOP allowed to happen, right? Because this was obviously like this fell through the cracks on their part. I mean, this was all televised. Like they saw what the guy was doing and they didn't stop it. So it's WSOP's fault. It's not. I mean, it's Dom's fault too, but it's WSOP's fault first because like they saw someone doing it and then didn't stop it. It wasn't secretive, and then the risk is just too high. If I was the guy on the table, like I'm not even talking about Dom, right? If I was the player on the table, the idea that like I'm going to pick up like some sort of relatively modest edge. And when I say modest edge, I mean, it's not like I have data on what the guy's strategy is. It's not like I'm running like real-time max explo, like node lock solutions for what his strategy is. So presumably, like if you make the final table of the WSOP main event, like you have a reasonable understanding of like what the heads up strategy should look like pre-flop. Like you might not know exactly what it should look like, but presumably you have like a reasonable understanding of what it looks like. And you're never going to have, even if they're trying to do some kind of max explo, like explo node lock strategy, they're not going to be able to because there's not enough data. So nobody knows what his opponent's strategy is. Like you're going to come up with some generic GTO-ish strategy that you should have like a semi-reasonable idea of beforehand, right? Mostly what you're doing, I would assume, is you're sanity checking yourself, or like you're seeing if he's making some mistakes somewhere in the tree when you see his hands at showdown, right? The problem with that is those mistakes are somewhat it's probably reasonably likely over a small sample that they're chaotic. So like you can't really exploit them in a way you can't necessarily exploit them in a way, and the solver's not going to tell you how to do that. So I think that it's a lot of risk and a lot of reputational risk, and a lot of financial risk for a very, very, very modest amount of upside. So, you know, like if I'm playing WSOP main event heads up against somebody, right? I'm BPipping probably 100% hands to start. There's an ante in this, right? So if I'm on the button, I'm B-pipping, like if I'm on the button in position small blind, whatever you want to call it. I'm probably going to be B-pipping 100% of my hands to start with. I don't need a solver to tell me that. So I'm probably going to be playing 100% of my hands. If I'm in the big blind and the opponent's using like a 2xing strategy, I'm probably going to be using like a 15 to 20, like a 15-ish% fold, maybe 20% fold, something in that range. Maybe it's supposed to be 10, right? But I don't think the EV loss of going from like 10 to 15 is going to matter. I wouldn't fold 20, but I'd probably fold 10 to 15% from the big blind versus min raise. And then like, you know, like there's a different hands that we're going to 3-bet with. Like those are going to be relatively chaotically derived. Like it's not going to be totally linear. And it's not going to be polar. So like, it's going to have a lot of board coverage in the 3-bet strategy. It's going to be dense. The top of the linear component of the range. Like there's just not that much, like, you know, you can, I'm not a heads up specialist either, right? Like you can get pretty fucking close to like what it's going to look like ish. And mostly what you're doing is you're like looking up a hand you played and then feeling better about it, which like doesn't really make you any money because it doesn't lead to like what you need to have happen is you have to have like meaningful strategy change after you look up the hand or after you get information from the solver in order for the solver to increase your edge. If your strategy is not changing, then it's not helping you, right? So I don't know what calculations they would have been running that would lead, or someone could be running for me, like on the bench, that would like really lead to like really meaningful strategy change on my part for the next hand, right? Obviously, you could make me feel better about the hand I just played. You could be like, oh, I lost a bunch of chips. And then someone's like, well, that wasn't your fault. Like, that's totally GTO. Like, it's a total standard spot. Like, you know, shit happens. That might be like a sanity check. It gives you like a mental edge, like an emotional edge, right? But in terms of like a technical edge, dude, you should have a fucking plan for like most of what these spots look like before the tournament starts. So again, I don't know if they're like, and if you run a post flop hand, right? Like that doesn't have any bearing on the next post flop situation unless you're talking about, you know, exploitatively derived strategies, and you can't really build one of those on the fly against, you know, with a limited sample size from the other guy that's just like, you know, taken from like the showdowns, or I guess you wouldn't just be taken from the showdowns if they're televised, right? So, I mean, like you could maybe build it slightly faster, still not fast enough. So yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if they're increasing the player's edge by enough to justify the risk that they're taking. And I'm strictly talking about this from like a business perspective. I'm not talking about this like morally or nothing. I just mean like, is the risk worth the reward? And I'm like, probably fucking not. Like, probably not. Like, it's probably not worth having WSOP want to ruin you, considering how big of an organization they are. Like, you were going to get paid in a, you know, maybe the same in a week, but maybe now you get paid in 6 months or a year because they or withheld, right? Or
it's a long process.
Okay, okay, that's fine, but maybe it's 6 months to a year, and now it's fucking 3 years, right? Like whatever their generic timeline is for payment, right? You probably just tripled it or like quintupled it. You might even have to take them to court to pay you because like they'll just be like, fuck it, we'll just not pay him until he fucking sues us, and then we'll pay him. Like, doesn't cost us anything, and we don't. And we fucking hate this guy. We want to like, you know, we want to make everybody know that if you do shit like this, like it's not acceptable. So you know, like the person who has to pay you money, you just embarrass them. And like, I don't give a fuck like what the amount of money is. Like if like, okay, I kind of do, but like if someone's gonna pay me, if someone's gonna pay me millions of dollars, so like it doesn't matter how much. Like if someone's gonna pay me millions of dollars, right? Whether I take first or second. So even if I like first, second place, doesn't matter. If someone's gonna pay me millions of dollars, money's gonna come from WSOP, right? So I'm gonna do everything I can to make that person that's about to pay me millions of dollars comfortable. Like that's just like, I mean, I don't know, like that's gets into the moral side of it, but it's also the business side, right? Like I don't want to do anything to disrupt the payment plan. So and you know, like even at even if they would like with interest rates at like, you know, let's say interest rates are 5%, let's just call them 5, right? So what was first place?
10 mil.
10 mil. Okay. So that means that if they
before tax, by the way, which I'll add.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, but so let's just say like 1 year with $10 million, right? So at 5% a year, that's $500K, right? So like if they keep the money for an extra year, you just gave up a 5% edge. So like that sucks. Like they can destroy the EV boost by just keeping the money. Like if they just hold it for longer, they can still distribute it to you eventually, but they can destroy the EV edge you gained from using a solver because it's not going to be more than 5%, in my opinion. And Yeah, they can just destroy that edge by like withholding the money for a longer period of time. Like it's just a bad business move, right? Like, so I wouldn't do it for all of those reasons. Like, you don't have to talk about morals and ethics. Like, I'm not a fucking priest. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the Mother Teresa. Like, we don't have to talk about like whether it's right or wrong. Like, it's just I don't think it's logical. And then you have to deal with all of the like an entire community of people that now fucking hate you. So you got to free roll that, right? Like, from the business perspective, it probably wasn't worth it. Probably didn't make any money, and then the world hates you too. Good job. Like, I pass. Like, I pass. I just wouldn't do it. So
yeah, that's a good point you make, actually. And I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't watched a ton of people talking about it because I just don't care that much. But you actually have an interesting take where you're thinking about it from the business point of view, where if people actually understand your edge in poker, and by doing that, how much the edge is actually going to be, is it worth it? It's probably not. Because I mean, if you think about it, right? So I think the taxes, I think it's 30%. So I know there's like, if even if you're flying in and outside of most countries, you're still gonna have to deal with tax. I remember I heard Espen, when he won a couple of years ago, he talked about it on social media that it was a grueling process to get paid after winning the main. Like, he was dealing with tax lawyers, all this other stuff. He said it took about 6 months or even longer to wrap up. That might not be the case for everybody, but yeah, I mean, just adds to, that other factor that you mentioned, where you should, aside from getting the money, deal with the WSOP themselves. And that's a good point you make about them handling it, because when you actually do think about the moral side of it, where this is like, as Pads mentioned on social media, this is our Super Bowl, essentially the biggest event our quote unquote sport has every year. And you're talking about when you want to grow the game and all that stuff, and you see shit like this, like your people aren't gonna have interest in playing as much as they would. So I actually think it's also negative in that perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disaster for the game. Yeah, like for the game, it's terrible, right? But like, if you're them, right? Like, you have to, like, try to make rational decisions as them, right? I don't think they were rational decisions. I think they were stupid decisions. Like, they were like, this is gonna sound sort of bad, but like, I don't care. So like, they're sort of just like being poker dorks, and they're just like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is so stupid. And yeah, like, if there's any cooperation that's required on the tax side from WSOP, like, which would be normal, right? Like, you're filing stuff, and like, you need documentation from them. It's gonna be hard to get it. Like, like, so all of the things that you need to make this work, like, it's not the turn, like it's not over. Like, the money's not on a fucking table, and then you put it into a truck, and then you leave when the tournament ends, right? Like, you have a relationship with WSOP going forward, right? You probably killed all of your sponsorship EV, right? Like, it's like it used to be like a pretty commonplace thing. Like, some poker site will sponsor you, like Poker Stars, GG Poker, or whomever. You won the WSOP Main Event. You've got a bunch of branding right now. There's a bunch of eyes on you. You're going to do a bunch of interviews. Like, you get a 12-month deal with some fucking poker site, right? But if you just cheated publicly, they're just like, don't want to touch you, okay? So like, you just forfeit all of that EV. And now maybe you get a fucking deal tomorrow. Well, like, who am I, right? But you're risking that EV. So like, that EV went lower, right? Because the money hasn't arrived yet. So it's worth less money than it was before. So like, your sponsorship EV has dropped. The time value of money is destroying some of your money, because WSOP is probably going to withhold for a longer period of time, to the extent that they legally can. And even to the extent that they illegally can, they might still fucking do it, and then just deal with the consequences of doing it, just to screw you over. There's going to be like complications with taxes, and like, WSOP is not going to help you through it. Like, you're alienating a person who owes you millions of dollars. Like, I couldn't think of a worse business plan, because you want to get a couple extra points on the other millions of dollars that still require the same people to pay you. Like, it's super stupid. So like, I wouldn't do it as the player. Like, I think it lowers. I think their EV is lower and not higher. I think it's interesting that Dom used, not a sliding Dom, but like, I'm not a DTO user myself, so I don't know to the extent that DTO like could have done the functionality. But I find it interesting that he used Munker instead of DTO to cheat, if you will. Yeah, I think that that's like most of it, and maybe they felt like they were really within the spirit of the rules, but like it's just not worth the risk. Like it's just not worth pushing it. Like there are certain lines where it's like that's a human judgment thing. Like it's a wisdom thing. Like it's like penny wise but pound foolish. Like you guys are like picking up fucking nickels in front of a steamroller. You know what I mean? Like yeah, maybe you got to squeeze out a couple extra points of edge, but maybe you lost millions of dollars in exchange. Like it's like I don't know. Seems and then there's the negative free roll of like everyone hates you.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty bad planning, pretty bad approach. Again, I'm not really condemning the guys themselves. Like I said, I have I've had pretty good interactions with Dom. I don't want to say anything like I don't want to trash the guy unnecessarily. I just think that this was like really poor decision making. Like they made really bad business decisions, and I can objectively evaluate the business decisions. I don't have to like talk about the people. So yeah, the business decisions were fucking stupid.
Yeah, because they're the way I just, it's funny when you actually outline it that way, because from my view and just trying to see why Dom did it, it's just something as simple as just he probably did look into the rules and he probably realized that he could do it. I don't think he's that stupid where he would just bring a laptop and not know that it would be actually against the rules. But
yep. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be. It can be within the rules, but it can be humiliating for the person that's about to pay you, and it doesn't really matter if it's within the rules.
Yeah. No,
that's right. Like like you can.
Yeah.
There are rules, like things within the rules that like can be exploited, and the EV is going to be higher if you do it. And there's things that are within the rules that if you exploit them, your EV might drop still. And I think that this is one of those things where the EV probably dropped. Yeah. So like if you do that all the way up to final 5 or 6 table or something, like it's probably fine because like no one's paying attention to you anyways. So like no one gives a shit about you. So you probably could have gotten away with it. But once you make the final table, once your head's up, like once then it's a whole new ball game. So yeah, again, I'm condemning the business logic. I don't think it was worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you point it out that way, and even too, I feel like if you're a live player as well, I'm not sure who this guy is that won, but maybe it leads to other problems with you just playing in the future, aside from just
yeah, 100%.
Like you walk into the win to play a 1K, and they're like, no. Yeah. Like, no, see ya.
Yeah, you're banned from all WSOP events for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
like, because you embarrassed us, like you humiliated us. Like you don't know that, like you might be like, well, that's extreme, or like that's whatever. Like it's just a decision that some other guy's making that you have no control over, and like it's not totally unreasonable. So like it could totally happen. And like being banned from every WSOP event for like in exchange for a few $100,000, like that's probably a worthwhile trade for almost everybody. Like for most people, it's probably a decent trade. Mm-hmm. But again, sponsorships. Like there's just too many things. There's just too many variables. Like them tying up your money, them not wanting to pay you. Like I just wouldn't want to piss those people off.
Yeah, so, even if you go play a tournament and then everybody knows who you are, you're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, I mean it's just like, and it's like, too. Yeah, it seems obvious that that's the conclusion. Like I think that if you didn't think that was the conclusion that was going to get reached, like then you have like a really, really superficial understanding of how humans work. So like this wasn't like predictable. Like this was obviously the conclusion was going to be like they're going to talk a lot about this, guys, if we do this, but like we're going to do it anyways. Like that's what if I decided to do it, that's what would happen. I'd be like, listen, we're going to get some fucking heat for this, but this is the best decision, so we're doing it anyways. If you got to that point that they got to without recognizing up front, like we're going to catch some heat for this, and you had a team of people. You guys are fucking stupid, man. you guys just have to spend, like you guys can go see a shrink, like go see a therapist. You guys just, your ability to predict human behavior is just so poor.
But that is his motto. Is poking the bear, Dom.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. Like I'm fine with it. Like I'm fine talking about Dom. Like,
yeah.
He's getting clicks. I don't know if it's good for DTO or not, but it's not good for like living as Dom. It might be good for the like economic profitability, like for the profitability of DTO, and it might have been good, debatably, at the time for like decision making EV. But as far as like is your life quality going up, right? Probably not. I mean, like because the thing is, especially for the guy that won, like whatever. I don't even know if he won or if he took second. I don't.
He won.
Really matter.
He won. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So what did he win? Do you know?
Yeah, 10 mil. I'm pretty
Oh, he
sure.
won 10 mil. Okay, so what was
Yeah.
second?
Not sure. Could check quick.
Yeah, just look it up for me.
Before I you know what? I'm gonna do it on my phone so I don't accidentally pull up. We'll keep going. But I'll
Sure.
look this
So
up.
let's just hypothetically, whatever the number is, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really just the difference that we're talking about, right? So let's just say, I don't know, let's just say it was, I don't know, 5, which I don't think it's 5. I think it's
I
either
know.
like
I
6
was
or
gonna
7.
say 5, but I think it's like more
Yeah, I
7
think it's like
maybe
6 or 7.
yeah.
But I don't know. So yeah, but whatever the case may be, like you're talking about the difference between being worth $7 million and being worth $10 million, or you're talking about the difference between being worth or $6 million and being worth $10 million.
It was 6.
Okay, 6. So, sure. So like, what's the EV like life difference for most humans when they go from 6 million to 10 million? Like, it's not very substantial. Now, I'm not saying it's zero. It's not zero, but the EV of that incremental $4 million is pretty fucking low. Like people who don't have a lot of money might have a hard time empathizing with that because it's still $4 million. Trust me, the EV difference from going from 6 million to 10 million is not very substantial, unless you live like totally unreasonably. Like maybe if you're trying to be Dan Bilzerian, then
Yeah.
the EV difference will be quite large. But like if you're trying to buy a house, what do you need? Like $1 to $2 million tops to like have a badass fucking house, right? And then you want a badass fucking car, $500,000, and then you want like a good retirement, right? $3-4 million. And then you're squared away, and like you'll go become an average Joe. Your retirement is taken care of for the rest of your life. You got a badass house for the rest of your fucking life, and you got a badass car. So like, what else? What do you want to watch? Go spend $20,000. We're not talking about real money now. So traveling and stuff, it's still not a big deal. So like, life is pretty much sorted at 6. You don't need 10. Now 10's great. 10's great.
Yep.
And I'd rather have 10 than 6. But the EV difference going from 6 to 10 is pretty low. And when you trade off like going from 6 to 10, so like that incremental $4 million, and you say now everyone fucking hates you, and now the WSOP is going to cause you a bunch of problems, and now blah 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 blah. Now you can't it's just not worth it. Like I know that it sounds crazy because I'm like it's not worth but it's not even the EV difference between winning and losing, right? It's your relative edge. So yeah, huge disaster. Would never do it. Strictly for business reasons, I think it was a mistake. So yeah.
Yeah, no, cool, man. Good insight. All right, so we'll jump into this next little segment. We got some fan questions, and by fan questions, I mean shout out Schwibs. I hit him up because I know he watches regularly, and he had some good questions to come up. So we'll get into it a little bit. But one of the first things actually that I thought was interesting, because I know recently you've improved a lot on your coaching, and we've talked about this. So he actually is wondering how the AI tools have changed the way you coach, or have they had any impact on the way you coach?
Yeah. So the AI tools have changed a lot about the way that I coach. And though they've allowed us to, so basically what's happened in the past is, okay, so when you coach someone, they have their idea in their head for how things work. And then they have a strategy that is the output, right? And sometimes, not all the time, but a pretty good fraction of the time, their strategy sucks, but like they have their reasons, right? And in their head, they're like, well, if my reasons are right, then my strategy is good, right? And you can use the AI to be like, actually, we can just node lock everything you just said. We can test everything that you believe to be true, and then your strategy still sucks. So now what? Right? And so like that is probably one of the most powerful things about the AI, and like the ability to kind of like node lock on the fly is it's more like you can be like, okay, all of these things that you believe to be true, even if they're true, you should still do the opposite of what you did. And it's like, oh shit, my line's really bad then. And it's like, yeah, see, this was terrible. Additionally, like you can see the implications of like what would happen if like when an opponent does something that like they're not supposed to do. So like very easily, right? So like if you go with like traditional like GTO solutions, like you have like the strategy, and someone actually referred to like traditional storage solutions almost as like a museum, right? And so you can only really look at the strategy. You can't really reach in and change anything, right? So if your opponent, for example, plays poorly and he goes off tree, so he does something he's not supposed to do. That's why he's your opponent, right? You're in a good game. He does something that he's not supposed to do. He goes off tree, and now the GTO solution is like basically like irrelevant because like you can't like recalibrate for the off tree node that you're now looking at as a result of the other. It's not even your fault. As a result of what the other guy did, right? And with the AI, like I can ask them to think through like what they would do, right? And I could say what I would do, and I can say why I would do it, which is what we're talking about when we're talking about poker coaching. We're talking about getting people to understand why their strategy should be the way that it should be, like, you know, as opposed to like memorizing some solver output, which is just ridiculous. And so they'll give me why their strategy looks the way that it looks. I'll give them why mine looks the way that it looks. And then we can look at what the AI thinks, and then hopefully the AI agrees with me. And sometimes it doesn't. I'm not, you know, I'm human, so sometimes I'm wrong. But hopefully the AI agrees with me, and we can kind of like advance and move forward to the next spot, and the next spot, and the next spot. So it's really helpful in dealing with situations where stored solutions basically can't provide any advice whatsoever because the opponent goes off tree. So like there's a whole bunch of different ways, because you don't have to just like, you don't have to like steamroll anybody. You don't have to like explain why and then like hope they trust you. It removes, yeah, it helps, you know, it kind of helps make people understand the logic better, because it's like, well, this is going to work the exact same way all the other spots have worked in the past. We're just in a slightly different situation, and we're going to deal with it in a logical and systematic way. And like, this is what I would do, and you can see that what the solver does is in agreement with that, and it kind of builds trust between myself and my students, and it gets them to be like more confident in the systems that we use to play the game, because they can see that the systems work not only when we're talking about dealing with like on tree scenarios, but also when we go off tree. Whereas like if you just memorize outputs, then by definition you're fucked as soon as you go off tree because you don't have outputs anymore. So even if you did memorize everything, which isn't possible, as soon as you go off tree, now you're screwed. So you need like systems to deal with it as a human player, and you want to appreciate the solver's answers. You want to understand how to reverse engineer those answers, but you want to understand that not all of the answers that a solver produces can like reasonably be reverse engineered. And you want to be able to like, kind of just live with that essentially. And yeah, the AI has like helped make my students more comfortable with that as I work through like different material with them.
Yeah, the node locking feature's amazing because how
Sure,
fast
yeah.
it is. Yeah. Okay. Next one would be, and I feel like we've spoken about this a few times, even just me and you, but what's the plan for Jordan after poker?
Oh shit. What's the plan for Jordan after poker? It's really hard to say because I'll be like a very different person by the time poker's done. So for me, right?
That's true.
So yeah, it's really hard to know. Like I'm already at a point where like I have more money than I need, you know, like assuming like nothing like catastrophic happens to my family or to myself or whatever. I have more money than I need to die comfortably and to make sure that my like daughter is well educated and everything like that. So I'm not really like, I'm still doing this for the money, but I don't like my lifestyle doesn't keep up with how much money I make. Okay, so like for some people it does, right? But like obviously, if you make $50,000 a year, you have a lifestyle, and it costs, unless you're going into debt, like it costs $50,000 a year or less, right? And then if you make $100,000 a year, same thing, except now it's 100, and then 200, and so on, right? And so if you start as the number keeps going up, right, your lifestyle keeps getting better and better and better. But like there's a point where, like let's say you make $10 million a year. I'm nowhere close to that level, but if we just like hypothetically talk about it, right? Your lifestyle, if you want to stay sober, I'd say that you could probably spend that money on. I could think of some creative ways to spend that money, but if you want to stay reasonably sober,
Yeah.
I think you'll probably find it hard if you're a normal guy to go from like a 70K a year lifestyle to a 10 million a year lifestyle. Like some people might be like, oh, it's going to be easy. It's like, I'm just going to spend all my time on a yacht. It's like, well, I get seasick. So, you know what? Like, I don't want to be on a yacht all the time. So, private jets. It's like, okay, like, did you like, maybe the quality of life's like way better on a private jet. I've never been on one. I don't know. But like that, it seems really silly to like work really hard so that I can fucking travel on a private jet and that's it. Like, that's the only reason that I'm working hard. Seems ridiculous. So, like, I'm already at a point where like I'm working more for like something to do, because it's like who I am. Like I work hard for the sake of working hard. I work hard because like I don't know who I would be if I wasn't working hard, and I don't know that I would like him. So I know I like the guy that works hard, but and maybe I would like the guy, like, maybe I would like who I am if without work, but I would have to work at something. Like, maybe I'd go work at, martial arts or some other endeavor, but like, I couldn't just be the guy that was like just doing nothing. I could go try to do something. Like, I like the freedom that this gives me. Even though like I'm working hard at it, the fact that like I'm not that I'm like really available for my daughter, for example. And I don't mean that in some super noble way. It's just like really convenient. Like I'm lazy. It's easy and it's convenient to pick my kid up from school, to take her to school, to take her to gymnastics, to take her to soccer practice, to go camping with her on the weekend or something. Like those things are all really easy for me to do because of the way that I work. Like I'm in my house right now working. So sort of. This is more fun. But you get the point, right? So I don't know that like, do I want to go like what I'm going to stop working and then I'm going to go get a job out of the house that like requires me to see my family less? Am I going to go like try to do like some kind of pro bono thing that still requires me to see my family less? Like this is something I can do. It's productive. I can use it to donate money to charities and stuff if I really want to do some pro bono shit. I enjoy it. I'm pretty good at it. A lot of people find value in what I do. Like I can help people with their poker careers like pretty reliably. Like I'm not trying to get rich. Like people think that like I'm doing this and I'm trying to get rich. I'm already like my definition of rich. So different people might have different definitions. Maybe some guy needs 100 million to be rich. I don't have 100 million, right? But I already have those things. So like Jordan's life out after poker, I don't know, man. Like more jujitsu.
We'll get you golfing.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but more jujitsu. I already got a pretty like my nose has already been fixed from my jujitsu. So more jujitsu, more Muay Thai, more wrestling, more traveling.
Travel's
like,
gonna be easy. Yeah, like I could see you probably doing traveling.
Yeah, but it's like hard to travel too much when your fucking kid's 6, man. Like she's 7 now, I guess. But like it's hard to travel a lot when she's in school, right? And
Right.
I live in like probably the most beautiful place on the planet, like one of them during the summer. So like I live in Vancouver, right? Canada. Like doesn't mean I can't go somewhere else, but like don't really want to leave here during the summer. It's really nice. There's a lot of really nice places to go, and I can go there and do those things like while I work. So like the upside's pretty limited because during when she's in school, like I'm not going anywhere. Like she's in school, so I don't know, man. Like my life's gonna be pretty similar to what it is now.
I'm sure you'll find.
I'd probably read more books or something. Like I would read more books, but like.
Well, I was gonna say you might find some new passion or whatever in the next because like let's be real, this is like 5-10 years maybe.
Yeah, like I said, I'd be a different person.
Yeah, exactly. So you never know. Maybe you would start golfing. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
When your older body just can't take wrestling and practicing BJJ anymore. I mean, I don't know what the cap is on that. Like, how about this? When you go to the gym, do you see guys typically around that age? Do you just training even?
Yeah, there's guys that are like in their mid 50s, like early 60s that still train. Yeah, like after mid 60s or early 60s, it's like pretty rough.
Right.
And like your body, it depends on how hard you train. So like at my peak for training, I was training like between 11 and like 14 hours a week. And you can't do that and be 55. I don't think. I think that's like fucking impossible. I think I've broken some things that I probably shouldn't have broken. Things that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't like as tired from like overtraining and stuff. So like I've damaged my knee in a way that like probably wasn't smart. Like I've done some things that are like not great for longevity. So, and if you're training like 2 or 3 hours a week, like those things, first of all, like you're just putting less hours in on the mats. It's like those things will probably not happen. But yeah, like you can't train the way that I was training, but I'm not training that hard right now. Like right now I'm probably training like 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, like a more normal, like still like for someone who doesn't train, that's a lot. But like for me, it's not a lot. Like, train 4 or 5 hours a week. And that's pretty easy on the body. But like if you want to train like, 10, 12, 13, 14 plus hours, like I've never trained 17, but I've trained like 14, 15 hours. If you want to do that much, yeah, you can't be 55, I don't think. I think your knees will just be like, nope, I quit. So
yeah, those joints, man. Because it's the recovery too. That's the thing that gets you when you're older is you just can't recover as fast.
Yeah, like it's just not good. I mean, like I said, I think I damaged some things that probably weren't worth damaging. So, but like it's the way that my brain works. I get like very obsessive when I don't understand things, and I also fucking hate losing. So, like really bad. So if like I go to jujitsu and like I get beat by everybody, like we can only put up with this for so long. So we're gonna come home, we're gonna study, figure out how to get better at it. Same thing was true with wrestling. Muay Thai. Fortunately, like I had enough combat, whatever, jujitsu and wrestling experience, like that Muay Thai for whatever reason, like it didn't bother me to suck as much. Probably because I don't really spar much with Muay Thai because I don't want to get hit in the head. So I use Muay Thai more for like technique and form and stuff, and like understanding how to defend against strikes. But it's mostly like drilling stuff. I don't really spar much. And again, that's mostly just because I just don't want to get hit in the head. So
you kind of need your head for your job too, eh?
Yeah, it's not even about that. It's just about being old. Like, if I'm old and my knee doesn't work as good, like, okay, fine. But if I'm old and my brain doesn't work as well, like, not fine. So, so I just don't want to get hit in the head too much at this age.
Yeah, no.
I did some boxing when I was younger, and I got hit in the head like enough then.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that you used to box.
No, not a lot, but like a bit. And like I got hit in the head like I got knocked out like cold. I've been knocked out like probably 3 times in my life already, which is more than like most people. That number 0 probably. Like I would say the average person's never been knocked out. So yeah, I've been knocked out I think 3 times. And like I was just a fucking kid. Like I was, I'm stupid now, but I was really stupid then. So I was boxing with guys that were like 6'7", 6'8", and weighed like 230, 240 pounds, but they were just like my best friends. And so like we would just box a lot. And one of them knocked me out twice, and one of them knocked me out once. So and I was probably like, how old was I? 16, 15, 17. Right, these guys were like 18 or 19 years old. They're like big brothers. So so like that's probably as many times as I should get knocked out. I should probably not increase that number by too much more. So yeah.
I guess like to tie into, things to do after poker, which it's kind of poker related, but the other question was, have you ever given any thought to learning a different format? So aside from cash games, because I know you've studied cash games, but you ever thought about dabbling in mixed games or PLO or anything like that?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I've been around poker for a long time. So like when I played sit and goes a lot, starting in like 2009 and 2010, sit and goes were like a process of moving from one format to another already. So like, there were just a bunch of different sit and go variants. There were like double or nothing sit and goes were like a totally different breed. There were like single table sit and goes, which were like 6 max, 9 max, 18 max. There were 45 mans, 90 mans, 180 mans. 45 and 180s were more popular, but 90 mans existed for a little while. So I like, different versions of sit and goes, like different formats in that regard. Like I played a lot. And I always thought about like playing PLO or mostly PLO as opposed to like mixed games more broadly, like mostly PLO. Yeah. But it's always just like pretty daunting, and like once I had the business around everything else, it made a lot less sense because it takes a lot of energy to like get pretty good at one of these games. And like if you stake, I don't know, like at various points, the total staking operation will be between like across all of them, be like between like 80 people as a lower mark and like 150 people, something like that, as like a higher mark. Again, I've gotten to 200 players before, but it was fucking nightmare. Didn't work very well. Too many people. I don't know how to manage it. So they're all playing fucking tournaments, right? They're all playing no limit hold'em tournaments. What the hell am I going to go learn PLO for? So, and then as far as like my spare time and what I want to do for fun, like I made my fortune, whatever you want to call it, like my career out of playing poker, out of sitting in my room by myself and trying to figure shit out. I don't want to do that for like R&R. You know what I mean? Like, like a relaxing experience is, I find jujitsu relaxing. You know what I mean? Like I go in, I'm like hanging out with people, we're talking, like I'm in a gym, it's a totally different setting. I'm out of my house. That activity gives me energy, even though it's exhausting. Like that activity gives me energy. Like if I was to study PLO like a lot and like try to push it, like that would be exhausting. Like because I would be like, this is a lot of work, and it would feel like work at this point in my life, which sort of sucks. But I think that's just like a natural consequence of like doing something like this. As much as I've done it, is like when you do it, it feels more like work than it does like fun. I don't care what it is. So if you're a gymnast and you spend all of your time doing gymnastics shit and like you study it and you do everything you can, you pour everything into it. Doing something like gymnastics like is going to feel like work. It's not going to be fun, right? It's just the way it is. So, yeah.
I felt the same way. Like even just in spare time trying to study PLO or play it, I'm like, dude, fuck this. I'd rather do something else.
Yeah, it's just like I'd rather do something else.
I feel like I should be, if I'm playing PLO, I should just be studying MTTs anyways. So, the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
All right. No, it was this was great though. We can just wrap it there.
Cool.
Yeah, cool episode. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you like more of this type of stuff, we can do it too. And if you have fan questions, just hit us up. You know where we are. All right.
Yeah, join the BBC Discord. If you have fan questions, join the BBC Discord and put the questions in there.
100%.
We'll take note of them.
For sure. All right. Thank you, Jordan, for your time. And
peace. Thanks, bro. Cheers, man.
See ya.
Bye.